Respect isn't built by what you say. It's built by what you don't. Small habits. Silent behaviors. That people notice. Without realizing why. Most people try to gain respect by doing more. Talking more. Explaining more. Trying harder. That's why they never get it. Because respect isn't earned through effort. It's signaled through behavior. Silence signals status. In social dynamics, the person who speaks less often is often perceived as higher status. This is because silence creates a vacuum of uncertainty, and the person comfortable with that uncertainty appears to be in control. Studies in social psychology show that people who pause before answering are perceived as more thoughtful and credible. A 2013 study by Fragpanagas found that response latency, the time before answering, influences perceived intelligence and authority. Why it works? The brain interprets silence as confidence because it breaks the social script. Most people fill silence out of anxiety. The person who doesn't signals that they don't need approval. When you respond the same way to praise and criticism, you signal that external events don't control your internal state. This is a core Stoic principle, Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Emotional regulation studies show that people who suppress reactive behaviors are perceived as more competent and trustworthy, as long as the suppression doesn't appear strained. Trying to appear non-reactive while internally agitated creates a leakage effect, microexpressions. True emotional control requires internal regulation, not just external suppression. Attention is a resource. When you give it freely to everything, it loses value. When you give it selectively, it becomes valuable. This mirrors the economic principle of scarcity. If you react to every comment, every notification, every interruption, your attention signals nothing. But when you choose when and where to engage, your attention becomes a reward. Marcus Aurelius wrote about guarding your attention as a sacred resource. Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought. Over-explaining is often a sign of low social power. People who are certain of their position don't defend it, they state it. Why? When you over-explain, you subconsciously communicate, I need you to understand me, because your opinion matters more than my certainty. The best answer to a bad argument is silence. Not rudeness, restraint. Nervous movement signals discomfort. Controlled stillness signals groundedness. Body language studies show that high-status individuals make fewer movements, and when they do move, their gestures are deliberate and intentional. This is sometimes called economy of motion. Why? The brain unconsciously monitors others' nervous system states. If you're fidgeting, it tells others you're uncomfortable, and they become uncomfortable too. If you're still, it broadcasts safety and control. In Roman courts, the best orators didn't fill every gap. They paused before the most important word. That pause created expectation. Cicero called it the suspense of attention. 2,000 years later, neuroscience confirms, silence before key information increases retention by making the brain work to anticipate. The pause is not empty. It's loaded. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, visualizing challenges before they came. Not to fear them, but to rob them of surprise. When you've already met the insult in your mind, it arrives as an old acquaintance. And your face shows nothing unfamiliar. That stillness is what others call unshakable. Epictetus said, if you wish to be tranquil, do what is necessary, not what is optional. Attention follows the same logic. Every interruption you accept is a vote against your own focus. The person who is hard to reach is not unfriendly, they are protected. And protected attention signals priorities. People respect clear priorities. The most quoted speeches in history are the shortest. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, 272 words. The Sermon on the Mount, roughly 2,300 words across 3 chapters. Brevity isn't lack of substance. It's distillation. The more you say, the less each word carries. The less you say, the more each word matters. High-respect individuals don't chase attention. They don't force presence. They follow a different set of rules, quiet habits, that shift how people see them instantly. They don't rush to speak. They pause. Even when they have something to say, that pause does something powerful. It creates weight. People lean in, listen more closely, because silence signals control. They don't react immediately. They process first, then respond. That small delay changes perception. It shows emotional control. And control is what people trust. They don't give attention to everything or everyone. They choose when to engage. And that choice creates value. Because attention that isn't freely given feels earned. They don't over-explain. They say what's necessary and stop. No justification. No over-talking. And that restraint signals certainty. Because people who believe in themselves don't need to convince others. They move less. No restless gestures. No nervous adjustments. Just controlled, deliberate movement. Stillness makes people notice you. Because most people can't hold it. When a conversation pauses, they don't rush to fill it. They let it sit. That moment creates pressure, and others feel the need to speak, which shifts control. They don't overreact to praise. They don't overreact to criticism. Their response stays level. And that stability sends a message. You don't control how I feel. And that commands respect. Here's the truth most people avoid. Respect isn't something you ask for. It's something people decide, based on how you carry yourself, in small moments. And those small moments are habits, not talent, not personality. Habits you can control. So start simple. Pause before speaking. React slower. Say less. Move less. Let silence work for you, instead of against you. Power line, 4 o'clock. Because the people who command the most respect are usually the ones who do the least, but do it with control. Most people spend their lives trying to be respected without understanding the signals. But once you see them, everything changes. Because respect isn't random, it's predictable. Most people spend their lives chasing respect the wrong way. They think it's built through loudness, through achievements announced, credentials displayed, opinions defended, and presence forced. They believe respect is something you take. But if you watch closely, really watch, the people who command the deepest respect are rarely the loudest people in the room. They are often the quietest, the most still, the ones who speak least and yet say most. Respect is not taken. It is not demanded. It is not even earned in the way most people understand the word. Respect is signaled. It is communicated through a set of silent behaviors so subtle that people don't consciously notice them, but feel them deeply. These behaviors bypass the rational mind and speak directly to something older, something instinctive in human perception. The ancient Stoics understood this intuitively. Epictetus taught that we should be silent for the most part or say only what is necessary and in few words. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Not through confrontation, through refusal to react." There is a painful irony in how most people pursue respect. The harder you try to be respected, the less likely you are to receive it. The more you explain yourself, the weaker your position appears. The more you chase attention, the cheaper your presence becomes. This is not a moral failing. It is a psychological law. Humans are wired to detect effort. And effort, especially visible, strained, performative effort, signals insecurity. When someone tries too hard to impress, we don't admire them. We feel their neediness beneath the surface. The Stoic philosopher Seneca captured this precisely. It is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the one who craves more. Applied to respect, it is not the person who has too little respect who appears low status, but the one who craves more of it. The craving betrays itself. High-respect individuals understand this. They don't chase. They don't perform. They don't convince. They are. And that stillness, that refusal to participate in the theater of social approval, is precisely what makes others pay attention. The first and most powerful signal of respect is the ability to stay silent. Not the silence of awkwardness. Not the silence of having nothing to say. The silence of deliberate pause. The moment when you have something to contribute but choose to hold it, letting the weight build before you release it. Most people rush to fill space. Silence makes them uncomfortable. They feel the pressure of an empty moment and instinctively reach for words, any words, to patch the gap. High-respect individuals do the opposite. They let silence sit. And in that sitting, something remarkable happens. The room adjusts around them. People lean in. They wait. The silence transforms from empty to heavy, and when the words finally come, they land with force they wouldn't have had otherwise. This works because of a psychological principle called expectation generation. When someone pauses before speaking, the brain of the listener prepares itself for something important. The pause tells the subconscious, what comes next matters. Without the pause, the words arrive at baseline value. With a pause, their value multiplies. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." Notice what he did not do. He did not defend. He did not rush to explain. He stated his position with quiet certainty and let the silence do the rest. The habit is simple but brutal to practice. Before you speak, pause. Count 2 seconds. Let the pause feel uncomfortable. Then speak. The discomfort is the price of control. Closely related to silence is the habit of delayed response. Not slow in the sense of sluggish thinking. Slow in the sense of processed, the refusal to react on impulse. When someone says something provocative, the instinct is to respond immediately. To defend. To correct. To strike back. This instinct is ancient. It comes from the limbic system, the part of the brain that prioritizes survival over wisdom. High-respect individuals override this instinct. They hear the provocation. They feel the emotional pull. And then they wait, just a moment, before they respond. In that moment, something shifts. The reactive energy of the other person meets a wall of calm. The provocation loses its power because it didn't achieve its goal, it didn't destabilize you. Seneca, in his essay on anger, wrote extensively about this. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Let anger's first heat subside, and the fog that clouds the mind grows thinner. Delaying your reaction does two things simultaneously. First, it protects you from saying something you'll regret. Second, and more importantly, it signals to others that you are not controlled by external events. You are not a marionette whose strings can be pulled by a sharp word or a criticism. You are sovereign over your own emotional state. And that sovereignty, that unshakable internal ground, is one of the most attractive qualities a human being can display. People trust people who are in control of themselves. Not in control of others, that's tyranny. But in control of themselves. That is leadership. The habit, when something provokes you, take a breath before you respond. Just one. The breath is the bridge between impulse and choice. Attention is the most valuable currency in human interaction. And like any currency, its value depends on its scarcity. High-respect individuals understand this intuitively. They do not give their attention freely to everything and everyone. They choose, deliberately, where their focus goes. This is not arrogance. It is not rudeness. It is stewardship of a limited resource. Every time you interrupt what you're doing to check a notification, you signal that the notification is more important than your focus. Every time you engage with every comment, every opinion, every distraction, you train people that your attention costs nothing. And what costs nothing is valued at nothing. The Stoics were ruthless about this. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be tranquil, do what is necessary, not what is optional. And if something is optional, ask yourself, do I need it? Do I truly need it?" Apply this to attention. Before you engage with a person, a conversation, a distraction, ask, does this deserve my focus right now? If the answer is anything less than a clear yes, withhold. The paradox is powerful. The harder you are to reach, the more valuable your presence becomes. When you do choose to engage, people feel it as a gift rather than an expectation. Because your attention feels earned. And people respect what they have to earn. One of the clearest signs of low social power is over-explaining. People who are uncertain of their position feel the need to justify it. They offer background, context, reasoning, trying to build a case strong enough that no one can argue with it. But the act of building that case signals that the case needs to be built, which signals doubt. High-respect individuals take the opposite approach. They say what they mean, once, and stop. Not because they are dismissive, not because they refuse to engage, but because they understand that certainty needs no defense. If you are certain of something, you don't need 10 sentences to communicate it. You need one. Perhaps two. The power of minimal explanation lies in its implicit message. I don't need you to agree with me. I know what I know. Seneca wrote, when a person spends all his time on the choice of words and the arrangement of syllables, he is gathering not substance but decoration. Substance doesn't need decoration. Certainty doesn't need justification. This is difficult for most people because they want to be understood. They fear being misunderstood. But the truth is that you cannot control whether people understand you. You can only control whether you speak the truth as you see it. The person who over-explains is trying to control the outcome, trying to ensure agreement. The person who speaks once and stops accepts the outcome. And that acceptance is a form of power. The habit. Before you explain further, ask yourself, did I already say what needed to be said? If yes, stop. The body communicates before the mouth ever opens. And most bodies are in constant motion. Fidgeting. Shifting weight. Tapping fingers. Adjusting clothes. Touching the face. These micromovements are not neutral, they broadcast discomfort. They tell the observer, this person is not at ease. High-respect individuals move less. Not through stiffness. Not through rigidity. Through controlled stillness. A grounded presence that doesn't need to fill space with motion. This stillness communicates something powerful, safety. When you are still, you tell the nervous systems of those around you that there is nothing to be anxious about. You are comfortable. You are not preparing to flee or fight. You are present. Research in nonverbal communication supports this. Studies by social psychologist Amy Cuddy and others have shown that expansive, open, still postures are associated with higher levels of testosterone, linked to dominance and confidence, and lower levels of cortisol, linked to stress. The body shapes the mind as much as the mind shapes the body. The Stoics, of course, understood this without the neuroscience. They believed that external composure reflected internal composure. Marcus Aurelius advised, let your movements be regulated, not like a dancer but like a wrestler. Controlled. Purposeful. Economical. The habit, become aware of unnecessary movement. If your hands are moving while you speak, ask why. If you're shifting weight while standing, ask why. Train yourself to stillness, not as a constraint, but as a practice of presence. This habit is a deeper application of the first. It's not just about pausing before your words, it's about what you do when a conversation naturally pauses. When the topic runs dry. When the other person stops speaking and there's a gap. Most people rush to fill that gap. They grab the first topic that comes to mind. They ask a logistical question. They comment on the weather. Anything to avoid the discomfort of silence. High-respect individuals let the silence sit. They understand that silence is not empty, it is charged. In a conversation, the person who breaks silence first is often the one who feels the most pressure. And pressure is a form of control. By letting the silence hold, you transfer that pressure to the other person. They feel the need to speak. They reach for something to say. And in that reaching, they often reveal more than they intended. This is not manipulation. It is simply the refusal to take responsibility for someone else's discomfort. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus said, "We should not be like those who are always ready to speak, but rather like those who are always ready to listen." Comfort with silence is the foundation of listening. If you cannot tolerate a gap in conversation, you cannot truly hear what the other person is saying, because you're too busy preparing what you'll say to fill the next gap. The habit. In your next conversation, when a pause arrives, count to 3 before you speak. See what happens. Often, the other person will speak first. There is a reason these habits are rare. They are difficult. They require emotional regulation, self-awareness, and the willingness to be uncomfortable. They require going against the grain of social instinct. The instinct to fill silence, to react, to explain, to fidget, to seek approval. Most people will read this and nod. They will recognize the truth in it. And then they will return to their old patterns, because old patterns are comfortable. The hard truth is this. Respect is not something you can ask for. It is not something you can demand. It is not something you can earn through effort alone. It is something people decide, unconsciously, instinctively, based on how you carry yourself in small moments. The pause before you speak. The breath before you react. The decision to stay silent when silence is heavy. The refusal to explain yourself when you've already said enough. The stillness in your body when others are restless. The calm in your voice when others are provoked. These are the small moments that determine how people perceive you. And the good news, the liberating news, is that they are habits. Not talent. Not personality. Not genetics. They can be learned. They can be practiced. They can be mastered. Do not try to practice all 7 habits at once. That is a recipe for failure. The brain cannot sustain that level of conscious attention. You will revert to old patterns within hours and feel discouraged. Instead, choose one. Week 1. Pause before speaking. Just 2 seconds. Nothing else. Week 2. Keep the first habit and add 1 breath before reacting to something that provokes you. Week 3. Add, say what you need to say, and stop. No extra justification. Week 4. Add, when a conversation pauses, wait 3 seconds before filling the gap. Build slowly. The habits compound. Each one makes the next easier. And over time, you will notice something shifting. Not because people tell you, but because the way they treat you changes. They listen more carefully. They approach you with more caution. They seek your attention rather than giving theirs. Because respect, real respect, is not built through words. It is built through presence. Through stillness. Through the quiet signal that you are not like everyone else. You are in control. And that is something people cannot help but respect. Most people spend their entire lives trying to be respected without understanding the signals. They work harder. They speak louder. They prove more. And they wonder why it never works. But once you see the truth, once you understand that respect is not about doing more but about being more present, everything changes. Because respect is not random. It is not luck. It is not about who you know or what you've achieved. It is predictable. It follows laws, quiet, ancient laws that have been understood by Stoics, by leaders, by the quietly powerful for thousands of years. And once you know those laws, you can apply them. Not through force. Through practice. The silent habits are the code. Now it's up to you to live it. First learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. Epictetus.